Hi Sagittarius, welcome to your August 2017 reading. I hope you all are doing well, and let's get into your August reading. So I briefly went over the moon, what's going to be happening with the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipses and the new moon and the full moon and all that activity that's going to be a big deal this coming month. And so, number one, we're in Leo, we're in fellow fire sign territory, so we should all be feeling, kind of comfortable. And I say we, I'm a Sag rising, and I feel very connected to that rising sign, and very much relate to, I feel very, very close to my rising sign. And so we have a lunar eclipse, which is coinciding with the full moon in Aquarius, which is going to be happening on the 7th of August, and that's going to be occurring in your third house, the house of Gemini, your opposing sign. And then we have a solar eclipse, which is going to be happening, coinciding with the new moon in Leo, and that's going to be happening on August 21st in your ninth house, which is your house. So that's awesome. You're going to be having an eclipse that's going to be occurring in your own house, right? The ninth house being the place, the space, the area where your own energies feel most at home and can vibe the most and kind of just feel really, really, in place, and like they can just really do their thing, right? The ninth house being the house of truth, right? The illumination of truth, higher understanding, higher learning, travel, philosophy, spiritual values, religious convictions, your morals, your beliefs. Also, I see it as kind of like the house that has to do with luck. I see Jupiter as a planet that really, that really talks about, or, is where we get our luck, right? Where our luck gets rolled out into our lives. So I see some really great things happening for you, with the solar eclipse happening in that ninth house. I see new truths, being sort of revealed, and Sagittarius is a sign that really doesn't have a problem dealing with the truth and dealing with honesty, even if it's brutal, right? And with the lunar eclipse, the full moon, which is, represents endings, cycles, patterns being closed out. The ending of things coming to a close, things that no longer serve us going by. And with the lunar eclipse happening, and also the lunar eclipse representing a time when we're looking at shadow aspects. The shadow parts of ourselves are being illuminated, right? Like what is not like what is a lunar eclipse shining or illuminating about our shadow selves in this particular area. So that occurring in your third house, right? The house of Gemini. So it's the house of information, the gathering of information, writing, how we carry out messages to everybody. Messages. I'm like combining messenger and messages together. How we share messages about the information that we've gathered, writing, journalism, things of that nature. Siblings, right? Like, is there a relationship with a sibling, like a pattern that you've had with a sibling, and that pattern is coming to a close, or the shadow side of that pattern with a sibling, right? That relation, like a negative aspect of a relationship with a sibling, is that being illuminated? Are you finishing out a book? Are you finishing out like a web series or a lecture series where you shared information with people? And then, with the ninth house, with the solar eclipse happening in the ninth house, like what truths are now being illuminated as these things are being closed out, right? Like as we're seeing the shadow aspects of our shadow self, which is Gemini, right? Because our shadow selves, are also very much tied to our opposing sign, right? Like the opposing parts of who we are, the polar parts of who we are, can also be found in our opposing signs. And Gemini being your opposing sign, right? Being the shadow of you, right? Being that part of you that's on the flip side of the coin. Like what truths are now being illuminated, regarding your shadow aspects, regarding your third house activity, regarding the Gemini within you that's on the other side of that coin, right? And so as I was sort of going over the astrology, that's going to be happening with the moon and, the eclipses and whatnot, I was really inclined, especially for you all, since you're having, the eclipses are occurring for you in your own house and in the house of your opposing sign, to really look at the relationship between Gemini and Sagittarius. And like, what's the relationship between these two? What's the dance that they do with one another? What are they lacking and can find from the other, right? And especially because I've been seeing a lot and hearing a lot about Gemini-Sag relationships lately, and seeing that, that bond and that union between those two opposing energies. And so there were like a few points that kind of came up for me, and the first one being that Gemini is the great gatherer of all this information, and can get a little scatterbrained with it, right? Can kind of move from one thing to the next, plot from one thing to the next, and gathers information, and sort of does it in a kind of impersonal, detached way, right? Like, for example, I had been traveling, late last year, almost a year ago. I was traveling, and I was traveling with this friend of mine who's now no longer a friend, and he's a Gemini, and he's been writing this book, right? Very typical third house, Gemini. I'm writing a book, and we were traveling together, and we'd end up sort of in a different town or a different community, and we'd spend time there, and we'd meet people there, and we'd, get involved in like the activities there, and we would just get immersed in whatever was happening in that certain town or area or community. And, his whole thing was, I'm writing this book. And so he got to know people insofar as he was able to gather enough information that was enough for him to kind of write these stories into his book. And then when he had gathered enough information, then he would say, okay, I'm kind of done with this place. I've got all the information I need. We can go now. Or like, I'm kind of done with this place. I have no other use for it because it's served its purpose for me. Meanwhile, me being a Sag rising and a Cancer moon, and just being a sensitive person in general, who takes, and also an Aquarius, right, who takes friendship and bonding very seriously. I really wanted to get to know these people and get their phone numbers and their email addresses and stay in contact and send them photos and see them a year from now. Like, there was a depth to my desire to like want to communicate. And who knows, maybe his depth was there too, but it was masked by this very impersonal sort of goal of like, I'm writing this book, I'm meeting these people with the intention of gathering these stories to then write into this book of mine. And that's insofar as I'll go with connecting. But Sagittarius wants to take that information and wants to create deeper, profound meaning, that really doesn't have to have any purpose or serve anything in the physical realm, right? Like, Gemini is more concerned with the realities that are happening right now. Sagittarius is concerned with the future and is concerned with more abstract ideas. And so really thinking about how to synthesize these two energies, right? One energy that's very good, Gemini, very good at taking energy, breaking it down, collecting it, then moving on to the next thing, breaking it down, collecting it. What's the reality of what's happening right now? Doesn't get too attached to things, which sometimes can be a good quality, right? Whereas Sagittarius, wants to take information, wants to take one piece and delve deeper into that piece of information, wants to give profound, abstract, philosophical meaning to everything, right? And sees the future, sees, has a vision that expands into the future, right? So how can we synthesize these energies, right? That, with Gemini energy, right? Taking the wisdom of Sagittarius and actually learning how to apply it and share it in this reality, in the here and now, right? And with Gemini, being able to take the bits and pieces of information that you're gathering and apply deeper meaning to it, and apply a past, present, and a future to it, and apply, you know, in the sense that the story that I was telling you, right? That like my friend was gathering these stories about these people, but his vision was focused on, oh, it's for my book, right? But it's like, how can we take that vision and recognize these people have a past, present, and a future that has meaning and that is profound to them? And how can I take their stories and actually give deep meaning to them that stems beyond the need for me to, you know, write this book or publish it or whatever it may be, right? So with your third house activity, with, you know, how can we take whatever writing project, with whatever information or communication you've been gathering in that third house that's been happening while this full moon is there, right? Like what needs to come to a close, and how you are gathering your information, and what deeper meanings or truths need to be illuminated in this solar eclipse. Like what new truths need to be brought out in the ninth house when the solar eclipse then hits, right? So like there's this need to kind of synthesize these two energies within the Sagittarius right now, right? Like how can Sagittarius actually, you know, encounter and recognize the Gemini within them, right? Like how can y'all do that? And, you know, and taking the information that Gemini collects and actually sifting out what is true and what is not, right? Sagittarius is very much about what is true and what is not. Whereas Gemini will collect information and will, yeah, like, you know, depending on where other things may be in your chart, like there's some discernment. But Sagittarius is more concerned with, no, what is true? What is true to me? What actually serves a moral purpose? What serves a spiritual purpose? What serves me on a higher understanding of myself and spirituality and the future, right? But then how can we also have that scientific mind and not getting too carried away with the philosophies, right? Like not getting too self-righteous in your beliefs and your convictions, right? Sagittarius, so taking that Gemini ability to move from one thing to another and not get so tied into one idea or belief. So sorry that was a little bit long. I'll put below if you just want to cut to the cut to the reading. So let's get into the tarot card reading aspect of this video. So I was sort of sitting and meditating with the cards for a minute and asking what energies were sort of present for Sagittarius for this month. And the first word that I heard was waiting. Then I heard combust, like impatience, like if you don't sort of get what you're, like I just got this very kind of like, if I don't get what I want right now, I'm going to combust. And then I saw somebody crossing a finish line. And then I heard not the right time. So those were the things that sort of came through intuitively to me. Let's see if any of them come up in the reading. They may not, like it may be a totally different reading. And some of you may relate to what I just said or may not. So what messages need to come in for Sagittarius for August 2017? Nice. Okay, Knight of Swords. Sometimes when I see the Ace of Cups and the Knight of Swords, like, I don't know, like I see this really beautiful, you know, emotionally connected, my cup overfloweth type romantic energy, right? And then I see this Knight of Swords who isn't like the most romantic of the knights. I mean, he is not a romantic knight. You know, it's a harsh energy. And I see the knight going towards the cup, but I see, you know, are you trying to intellectually dominate whatever this may represent for you, a new relationship, emotional healing, new emotional beginnings? Are you trying to intellectualize and dominate this thing that really can't be intellectualized and dominated in that way? Like, you know, and depending, I mean, they both came out here, right? But when they're like this, it's like, of course, someone's running, right? Running from the hills, running for the hills from this situation. But yeah, I just get this feeling that like there's this dissatisfaction with how you may have done things here previously, romantically, emotionally. And now it's like, now I'm going to conquer it. I'm going to overcome it. I'm coming for it. I'm going to conquer it. I'm going to overtake it, and it's going to be mine, or I'm going to do it the right way. I'm going to stop hurting this person, or I'm not going to be afraid to go here. I don't know, but then sometimes with this Knight of Swords, yeah, he's fearless, but, you know, they're two different energy. Like, this is not an energy that you want to approach this with, right? Let's see what else is coming up for Sagittarius for August 2017. Okay. Capricorns. So, who else got some? Scorpio got this. Or was it, no, it wasn't Scorpio. It was Libra. Libra got this. So, maybe you're in cahoots with the Libra. Okay, can I get, maybe you're in cahoots with the Gemini. Like I was saying before, I've been hearing a lot and reading a lot about Gemini. I just found out like a week ago that one of my coworkers, he's married to a Gemini. So I was like, oh, and he's a Sagittarius. And I was like, you're totally a Sag. He was like, yeah. And then later on, he was like, yeah, my wife's a Gemini. What else is going on for Sagittarius for August 2017? Okay. One more for Sagittarius, August 2017, or whatever else needs to come out. Sometimes I get a little bossy with the cards, and then I realize that I'm in absolutely no control. Okay, let's take these out too. What's on the bottom? Oh, the Knight of Cups. Maybe this is kind of like what needs to be, maybe this is how we might need to approach this a little bit more, right? So, you know, where is that Knight of Cups energy? Where is that energy at? That softness, that, you know, willingness to approach, emotionally available. Like, I don't really think this guy is very emotionally available. He's got a lot that he's trying to achieve and conquer right now. And being like emotionally connected is not one of them. You know, he has a sword. I mean, he's a fucking sword. Like, it's a harsh energy. So yeah, what's going on with Sagittarius? So like I said before, you know, what's kind of going on here? What's going on here that you, like, what's this urgency, right? And again, when I kind of was seeing like this idea of somebody crossing through this finish line, like, is there like a race, or is there like are you in this competition of trying to prove to yourself that you can be here, that you can be this person? Because, I mean, if you can't, if that's not the case, then maybe that's just, you know, this was the first card that came out, so I definitely feel that there's like some kind of emotional, I feel that there is definitely some kind of, there's some kind of emotional connection that's happening, and with that finish line metaphor, that finish line vision that I had, it's like, are you trying, like, what are you trying, what are you racing to? We have the devil here, and like I said before, Libra got this card as well. So I'm not sure if any of you are dealing with a Libra, right, who's also like, an air sign. And is somebody else getting tired? Like, is somebody else sort of getting tired of the back and forth? Is somebody else getting tired? Because, Sagittarius, y'all, and especially with Saturn being in your sign, having been in your sign for a while, when Saturn's in Sagittarius, it's like Sagittarius wants to do nothing but expand. Wants to expand. I think I mentioned this in my last Sagittarius video, but in the wintertime, all the other signs pretty much want to go inside and stay warm for the winter. Maybe cuddle up with a partner, maybe do a science project, whatever, right? It depends on what archetype we're talking about. But Sagittarius wants to stay out in the winter, in the snow, and hunt and explore and be in the woods, in the wilderness, and just be off, right? And so there is a bit of an inability to sort of commit. Not inability, but a lack of desire, motivation towards committing, right? Because in the commitment, there is this idea that if I commit, if I decide to be in commitment, then I'm holding myself in bondage, and that these two people can't go anywhere. They can't expand, right? And I'm just talking about these two, this chain right here, right? If I chain myself to another person or a situation, then I can't go anywhere. And what I really want to do as a Sagittarius is I want to go. I want to go places. I want to conquer these new ideas and philosophies. I want to travel. I want to expand. I want to philosophize on things. And so there can be a tendency to err on the side of not wanting to commit, not because you don't love the person or because you don't see the beauty and the value in the person, but you all, being the last fire sign, right, being the highest evolved fire sign, you want to continue to evolve, right? You want to continue to grow and to expand. And you want to continue to break the bounds and the limitations, right, that Saturn really wants to set forth for you. And I do, and this devil card is Capricorn, right? And Saturn is the ruling planet of Capricorn. And so I do see this card as representing in part the Saturnian energy that's trying to kind of bring you in from this, right? And possibly transform into this, right? The Queen of Wands still being a fire sign, right? And for me, the Queen of Wands represents Leo energy. And to me, and we're in Leo right now, and to me, of all the fire signs, Leo is the warmest, is the most emotionally connected, right? Wants to connect with people, wants to compliment and kind of dote all over people, right? So I definitely see this Queen of Wands as representing an energy, a more refined energy that Saturn is asking you to really sort of grab hold of, but let's I'm kind of going all over the place, right, with these different ideas for your third house, right? My son's in my third house too, so sometimes I can get a little bit carried away myself with the different stories and ideas. So there's a situation. There's a situation, and it has the potential. It has the potential to be this 10 of Cups. It has the potential to really bring abundance, emotional abundance, romantic abundance, love life abundance, right? I believe these two are very much connected, that whatever the situation is, whatever the new love, whatever the new beginning is being presented to you in this Ace of Cups is really beautiful. It has a lot to offer. But I don't know, but is this always what a Sag kind of wants? Is this kind of what a Sagittarius hopes and dreams for, you know? I don't, you know, I think you see the beauty in this and you understand why it's seen as beautiful, but it may not be like the first thing on your list, right? It may not be the highest, you know, value on your list. And again, this Knight of Wands is charging forth. And I do view this sort of as potentially also being another person, an air sign, an air sign, a Gemini, Aquarius, or a Libra, who is fighting for, who is really trying to fight for what this could be with you. It's like, oh, don't you see? Like, I have to come charging. This person is charging for it, you know? This person is trying to get you to see what's here. Right? And again, we have this Devil card. Capricorn, Saturn, the limitations. Where is Saturn in your life trying to bring you limitations? And I don't mean limitations to where you can't move or go anywhere, or to where you feel that your life is in bondage, right? But where do you need to actually commit? Where do you need, like, what are the values, right? Like, where, oh, hold on. Sorry about that. I forgot I had something in the kitchen in the oven cooking, so I had to go pull it out. But now I am back. So yeah, I actually want to pull a clarifier for the Devil card. Can I get a clarifier for the Devil card? Clarification for the Devil card, please. Okay. There's something or someone from the past that either you feel like you can't break away from, or they feel like they can't break away from you. And this is actually beginning to make a lot more sense now, right? With this Knight of Swords and this Ace of Cups energy, right? Like, what's happening between the dynamic between these two, right? Is that there is a connection. I feel, can I get a clarifier for the Ace of Cups? Can I get clarification for the Ace of Cups? Yeah, it's a situation where either you or the other person, and I have a feeling this is the other person, that is feeling kind of left out in the cold. I have a feeling that it's the other person who's feeling as though they're not being, you know, and I mean, the energies can go both ways, but I definitely am getting a sense that there is a party in the relationship you know, it's there. So someone's not happy, right? Like this Ace of Cups represents like the like a new beginning, or a relationship or an emotional situation, right? That initially may have looked really promising, that initially may have looked really, but what it's beginning to feel like is that it's draining. It's draining you. It's draining the other person. It's draining both of you. And no one's really happy, and someone's feeling left out in the cold. Someone's feeling as though what someone is feeling as though what's happening is not, it's not enough, or it's not, you know, it's not fulfilling or in abundance. But then again, we have these 5 pentacles here, right? That it's a matter of perspective most of the time, right? That it's a matter of recognizing the 5 discs, these 5 suns that are essentially above the two of you, the warmth and the food and the drinks and the closeness, right? Like what is beyond this stained glass window. And that what's beyond the stained glass window is actually quite beautiful, but it's a matter of looking up and actually making the decision to step inside. But yeah, with this Devil card, you know, feeling unable to break free from the bondage of maybe this past situation. That when we look at things through the lens of the past, sometimes we can idealize them, right? Like these two figures look incredibly different, right? So having to break the cycle of going here, having to break the cycle of like, oh, well, I could have done things differently, right? Like I said in the beginning of this reading, I feel like this Knight of Swords, I get the sense that this Knight of Swords is rushing back to this Ace of Cups, is rushing back to whatever this relationship is rushing back to whatever this situation represents for you. And wants to conquer it. There is this like, wants to conquer it, right? It's like, you know, when you see a mirage in the desert, right? And you start chasing it and you go after it when you see that, you know, that illusion of a body of water in the desert and you chase it, right? Even this Knight of Swords kind of appears to be in a desert, right? And you're running, like he's running for this mirage. This is not real. This is a mirage. This is a body of water that's an illusion, right? And when he finally gets there, it's the realization that in reality it's like this. But when we're stuck in our memory, right? When we haven't let go of a relationship, when we haven't let go of, you know, a situation, we tend to want to idealize it and remember it for the happy-go-lucky memory that it initially was, but it really wasn't. Do you know what I mean? Like, we tend to be here instead of remembering this was what it was like. So really what I'm rushing back to is this disguised as this and disguised as these cups. It's not these cups. It's the snow. It's these pentacles that are unreachable, right? It's both of you in rags and one person on crutches, right? But there is this sort of desire to want to rush back to whatever memory of this has, right? And this Queen of Wands is here, and I definitely get the vibe that this is you all. I want to pull a clarifier for this Queen of Wands. Can we clarify this Queen of Wands? Can we clarify this Queen of Wands? You know, I really do see it as you all making a choice to stand in your own power and your own fiery power and your own throne, and to actually recognize, right? And even in the way that these cards are laid out, I very much also pick up on which way are the court cards facing? Are they facing towards the object of their desire or away from the object of their desire? Are they facing towards chaos or away from it? And I see you sort of facing away from, right? Her look is kind of going out. I see you looking away from this chaos. And so I see like this Queen of Wands is secure. She's very secure. She's okay with being on her own. She's okay with she's okay with not having a partner. She's okay with, she's very independent. I think all the queens are very capable of standing on their own, right? And I definitely see this queen as recognizing I have all of this creative power. I have all of these amazing things in my life and this positive energy. I'm recognizing that I'm doing this cycle, right? The Devil card also represents cycles. It represents patterns or behaviors that we continue to get into, right? And what I said earlier, when I was talking about what I was reflecting on when I was pulling your cards, I heard the word not the right time, right? And maybe this is just not the right time, right? But I still want to pull a clarifier for this Queen of Wands. Can I get clarification for the Queen of Wands, please? Why is the Queen of Wands here? Yeah, I definitely see it as, we're done. We've gone back and forth, right? Like, I feel like these swords could each represent a time, the number of times that there was a back and forth, that there was a going back to whatever this represented, right? Whether it was you or the other person that continually went back and forth, right? But there's a cycle that needs to end. There's a cycle that needs to be changed. And I definitely feel that this Queen of Wands is recognizing, like, this energy is no longer serving me. It's draining me. It's draining you. It's not really working for you anymore. We have this 10 of Cups here, which is below the Ace of Cups. So initially, this situation could have had the potential to really bring about positive, beautiful, fulfillment, emotional fulfillment. But sometimes it's just not the right time. Sometimes we're in situations where we definitely see the potential, right? We see the potential, but then we tend to end up in here, right? Like, the situation that you were in totally had the capacity to end up here, but then ended up here instead. And then we have this Devil card. So it's like there's a pattern that keeps repeating itself. And I don't want to sit here and point the blame or point fingers, right? But I'm also getting the feeling that there could have been some things that could have been done differently. Some things always, right, could have been done differently. But I definitely get the sense that, like, underneath all of that things could have been done differently. Can I get a clarification for the High Priestess? Y'all feel really hard to read for this month. Can I get clarification for the High Priestess? Yeah. Yeah, and then even, I don't know, I get the feeling that there's a lot of sort of the recognition, right? The inner knowing that there was something really valuable in this situation. There was something really valuable about this relationship. There was something within this relationship that that you're still holding on to it. I say that because I see, right, this four of Pentacles here. There was something really valuable and beautiful in that relationship. And there was something, it could have been with an earth sign, right? Again, a Capricorn, a Virgo, or a Taurus, right? There was something very precious and beautiful about maybe even a Cancer. For me, the High Priestess is kind of a Cancer card. There was real potential with this person. What happened? What happened? Well, obviously there was a back and forth, right? There's this dance of do I move forward? Do I not move forward? Do I pursue it? Do I look away like this Queen of Wands is kind of doing, right? And she's like, I just want to, and I think at the end of the day, a lot of you made the choice, right? And of course, this being the Hermit, the ninth card in the major arcana, and things happening in your ninth house. And what does the ninth house represent? Once again, truth, travel, expansion, higher learning, understanding. And it's like this card, it's the house. It's not really a house that has much to do with relationships. It's a house that has more so to do with, the eternal quest for knowledge, the eternal quest for enlightenment. And when one goes on enlightenment, they often do this on their own. They often go on this quest by themselves, right? And so there could have been a choice or an option. Do I, continue to pursue things with this person who at the end of the day, because I'm in this sort of limbo, things always feel like this because I'm in this energy, right? And this other person can feel that I'm in this energy, right? That they're not a priority, that they're not being considered in my plans, that they're not really being considered in the larger vision of my life and what I see for my future, right? And in my future, and in the future, what I see is this higher quest for learning or understanding, this very Sagittarian quest and journey for expansion, whatever, area of expansion, whatever that looks like in your life, right? But, like I said before, when it's wintertime, all the signs want to go inside, well, not all of them, but the majority of the signs want to go inside and sit by the fire and, do X, Y, and Z, and Sagittarius wants to be out in the snow, continuing to hunt or continuing to learn and to meditate and to be by themselves and to explore and expand. That's what Sagittarius wants to do. And again, I'm talking about the archetype of Sagittarius. Depending on who you are, what your upbringing might have been, where your other placements are, planetary, planet-wise, astrologically wise, like you may not be this typical hermit, right? Character, but I definitely see, there was a decision of like, do I commit to this or do I commit to this? Which one do I do? Which one do I commit to? And I think, sometimes Sagittarius, it's okay to commit to this, right? But when we stay here, like when we're in a relationship and we're here and this Two of Pentacles energy, which can be a great energy, right? If we're talking about the ability to balance different areas of our lives. But if we're constantly doing this dance where we're like, sort of teetering and tottering these two various options, we might actually end up finding ourselves here. And I'm not saying that this is your fault and your fault alone, but this doesn't help, right? Like this doesn't help in creating this kind of energy, right? Like the people around us can feel it when we're in this sort of purgatory, when we're in this sort of, waiting game, when we're in this sort of, like, oh God, what do I do? Dance back and forth. Like people can feel it. And especially in a romantic relationship where this person, whoever this person was, knows intuitively that this may not be what is in my highest good, right? This person intuitively knows where you're really at. They know that you're taking that pentacle, right? They know that you're taking the pentacle that represents whatever relationship you have with them, and that you're kind of playing with it and juggling it with other goals and aspirations, right? That you're not really able to synthesize right now, the two. And then there's the Emperor, right? And it's like, what are you taking a stand for? What are you making a decision on? What are you committing to and putting your, what are you committed to pursuing, right? Because this Emperor is a very action-oriented, willful kind of, this Emperor doesn't really engage in this energy very much. This Emperor is very, very, very direct. And I'm going to pull a clarifier for the Emperor. Like I said before, y'all, this is probably one of the more difficult readings for this month that I've encountered so far. Y'all are kind of all over the place. Can I get a clarifier for the Emperor? And I think that's Sagittarius, y'all have a tendency sometimes to want to hide behind the philosophical, higher-minded side of things. And the thing about Gemini that is a great piece of advice from the Gemini card is what is happening right now. What is real for me right now? What is real for me right now? And what are the connections that I can build right now in the here and now, right? And that might be a good, a good, what's the word? It might be a good idea to take a note out of that book, or a page from that book, or whatever that phrase is. Anyway, so we have the Emperor, and I clarified it with the Ten of Pentacles and the Wheel of Fortune. So there is this desire, right? Like we have, now we have a reading with 3 tens, right? But we have this and we have this here. So there is this desire, right, for these fulfillment, kind of completion, beautiful energies, right, that involve, fulfillment with you and another person. There is this sort of desire for it, but it goes up and down. It goes up and down, right? To me, the Wheel of Fortune is also something that isn't set on good luck and good luck only. It changes. It goes up and down. There isn't a strong it changes. It's constantly changing. So there isn't, like I said before, what are you willing to what are you willing to sort of take a stand for? What are you willing to be proactive about? What are you willing to lead? Like, are you willing to lead and kind of take forth with this energy, And I see you all sort of holding on. Yeah, I see you all holding on to things not moving forward. I see you all not you all, right? Because this reading may not relate to everybody, but I see it's like with this, right? I see like the phrase that came to mind was trying to have your cake and eat it too. Trying to maintain and keep things in this balance without having to actually right? It's like, I'm going to hold on to all of these coins, all these different options. But in holding on to these options, you actually, like, now you're really in bondage. This person can't go anywhere. If he were to stand up, the pentacle on his head would fall off, and the pentacles on his feet would be moved. If he were to move his arms and grab the pentacle on his head, the pentacle on his arms would fall out. So it's just like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't do that. It just leads to everybody in the situation, right? This sword that you're trying to conquer or still chase after this relationship with, it ends up in all of your hearts anyway, right? It's just like, I don't know. It's like, to me, these two have similar meanings, right? It's like trying to get away, trying to hold on to everything you possibly can, even if your arms are full, and it's keeping you from being able to move swiftly in the ways that you want, right? Like even if you hold on to this, you still can't even have this. You still can't even be free and be and expand and travel lightly in the ways that a Sagittarius wants to do, metaphorically and literally, right? You can't do that. You can't hold on to. You can't conquer, right? This emperor conquers everything, but you can't. It's like, but still, this desired dream that you are trying to conquer, you're trying to go after this Ace of Cups with this Knight of Swords energy and trying to overpower it, essentially. Like, even in trying to overpower it, it still goes up and down. You're still going up and down with it. And the more that you hold on, the more that you're trying to have your cake and eat it too and keep all of your chips, right? As opposed to letting them fall where they may. When you're here, it's just, it gets worse. It gets worse than this. You just end up here. So it's like, my advice is, where do you want to commit? Where do you, like, what is... Can I have an outcome card for Sagittarius for August 2017? Page of Swords. Page of Swords. I believe, there needs to be some communicating that happens. There needs to be new truths. And again, this definitely relates to what's happening with the moon. In your 9th house, the solar eclipse happening in that 9th house. This Page of Swords is a youthful energy, a young energy, a playful energy, right? And that very much, to me, relates to like how a Sagittarius sort of navigates the world. So Sagittarians are very lighthearted, happy-go-lucky, and I know because I'm a Sag rising. So what messages, what truths now need to be communicated to this person here, right? Like, what do you need to communicate to this person? How can you show up as your authentic self, as your lighthearted, jovial, Sagittarian self, right? Like, yeah, this energy is great and it's really, deep, but, sometimes it can be a little bit overindulgent when we're here all the time, right? When we're trying to be this hermit, deep philosopher. It's like, okay, get over yourself. Be here. So what messages, what truths need to be communicated within this relationship, right? Whatever is going on here internally, communicate that, right? Don't be so heavy-handed with your sword. Remember, you're a Sagittarius. Yes, you are very serious, and you are the highest evolved fire sign, and you are the philosopher, and you are the you have highest ideals for learning and spiritual ideals and convictions, but you're also very playful and jovial, and Jupiter is your ruler, right? There's a childlikeness to you, and return to that and communicate with that nature, right? Communicate with that, like, this is very impersonal. This is a more personalized, communication and understanding. So get back to here. Get back here. So that is your reading, Sagittarius, and the video is kind of lagging. So I hope that you all resonated with some of this reading. And if you want a personal reading with me, you can contact me at tattoosandtarot@gmail.com. Or you can go to my website, which is tattoosandtarot.com. And sorry, the video's totally fucking up right now. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, so contact me if you want a personal reading. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Nice comments, please. And I will see you all next month. Bye.